I know I say this every time, but oh my gosh, why do I keep picking designs that give me such a hand cramp? Oh. Hello again, team. It's Jess or JashiiCorrin, and welcome back for my March 2020 plan with me. Before we get into the setup for today, we are, as per usual, going to look at how this month is going. So as you'll remember from my last monthly plan with me video, my theme for February was 8-bit pixelized games. If you've also been watching along with my weekly plan with me's, you'll know that I've been having a little bit of a hard time with making sure I'm getting into my journal, so some of my pages aren't quite as filled in as I'd like them to be. And while for the monthly trackers I do plan to fill those in before the month's over, for the weekly pages I'm not going to go back in and add things in. Having a flip through though, we had my cover page, my Pac-Man monthly log, my Space Invader habit tracker, and my snake inspired steps tracker, my Tetris inspired mood tracker, which I am really enjoying. I'm a couple of days behind, I do need to get in and fill in those days, but this one's going quite well. My social media scheduler, and then a page that I didn't actually set up as part of last month's video, but this is a page to see if I'm actually ready for each period that I have at school. So I've got the days of the week down the side with the period numbers, and then the week numbers along the top here. So each of these little boxes just represents one school period, and when it's all ready, I can cross it off. After this, we're into my weeklies. So my first weekly was Minecraft inspired. After not using this one too much, for the next week I tried to go with something fairly simple, and I just used some washi tape along the bottom here. After again not using this one too much, I tried to change things up and I went with this layout with all of these little stars, because stars are one of my favourite things to doodle. And then for the week that's coming up, I just have some simple boxes with these colourful little block headers. Flipping over to where I'll be starting my March pages though, just a reminder that any of the equipment I use in today's video is linked in the description box below. As you guys might have seen, a few days ago over on my community tab, I asked what you thought I should do for my March bullet journal theme. I really appreciated all the responses I got, but one of the ones that stood out for me, and also one that got the most likes, was from Lucy, who suggested I do a Dreamcatcher theme. I've been wanting to do this theme for a while, and given the fact that you guys showed interest in it, I figured that would be my theme for March. The nice part about the patterns that go inside of Dreamcatchers is that they're based on concentric circles, so I got to make really good use of my circle stencils this month. You can see that for my cover and quote page here, on the right I went and drew in a bunch of concentric circles, just in pencil, and then I drew some straight lines that go through the centre of this circle, just to give myself some guides as to where I wanted my pattern to go. Obviously at the moment I'm working on the feathers and the letters that hang off of my Dreamcatcher, but after this I just go in and put a dot at any of the intersections between those straight lines and the concentric circles that are actually going to end up being penned in. By putting these dots in as guides, I'm really just turning this pattern into one big connect the dots picture. This then made it way easier for me to go and draw the pattern in without making any mistakes. One of the things that I found with a lot of the reference pictures for Dreamcatchers online, especially if they're drawn images, is that the lines of the pattern were curved. The issue with this is, if you look at an actual Dreamcatcher, the lines aren't curved. Any of the threads that go between two consecutive intersections are actually quite straight. Of course, for someone like me who loves straight lines, this is really helpful. So when it came to drawing the pattern in between my dots, I just had to draw straight lines between them. You guys know I'm a real fan of straight lines and geometric shapes, so when it came to the Dreamcatchers, the part that I really found the hardest was drawing in the feathers. The feathers that I have on the cover page are a little bit different to the other feathers that I've used in the rest of my spreads, but I'm really pleased with how all of them have turned out. I know that in today's setup it might be a bit difficult to visualize how I came to the final designs of the Dreamcatchers, but if you guys would be interested in a video going into a bit more depth on those and how I do them, that is something that I could certainly make for you. Here you'll see I'm using my Helix Circle Maker to get a nice clean outline around the outside of my Dreamcatcher. Sadly this was a little off-center, but thankfully I don't think it's too noticeable in the final product. To make it look like the outside ring was bound or wrapped with something, I just went and drew in some small rounded shapes the whole way around. I could have done a better job of this, and in the later Dreamcatchers I draw, I certainly do, but I feel it gives the right sort of effect, and all in all, I'm really pleased with how my line work turned out. Next, I moved on to the quote page on the left-hand side. I really loved the way my one from January looked, and I felt it was a really good opportunity to get a little bit more creative in my journal. So for March, I figured I'd go with something similar. My quote for the month coming is, "If you really want to catch your dreams, you have to chase them." I thought this was really fitting, obviously both for my theme of the month, but also just as a reminder in general. Over the past few weeks, with the craziness of school and some pretty big general feelings of apathy, I've let a lot of my goal-related habits slide. This has been really disheartening, especially as I felt I did really well in January. So I'm hoping to make March the month that I get back into the swing of things and do the things that I need to do to get me to where I want to go. In terms of the design for the quote page, the one that I had back in January was based on a gorgeous design by a lettering artist, while this month I decided to freestyle it myself. It certainly isn't as decorative as that previous one, but I really enjoyed using the different lettering styles and getting to add in the small decorative elements. I know I have a long way to go in terms of my hand lettering, but again, I'm still really pleased with how this one turned out. As you can see, my colour palette for March includes mainly pastel shades of blue, purple and pink. This was close to the palette that I was initially intending on using for January, before I went with my monochromatic black/white/grey palette, so I'm really pleased to be using it for this month. Pastels in general aren't typically something I gravitate towards, but this combination in particular I really do love. This year I'm hoping to do a couple of seasonal themes in my journal, in particular autumn and spring. Although March is technically the first month of autumn, the weather certainly does not feel that way. It's normally still quite hot in March, while in April and May we do start to see some cooler weather. I'm going to be saving my autumn theme for either of those 2 months, and I am super excited about getting to do a theme with autumn colours and doodles of leaves and all the other stuff that autumn has to offer. Every year I tell myself I'm going to do an autumn theme and then I never get around to it. So you guys better hold me to that. Either April or May, we're doing an autumn theme. With the cover and quote pages done, it was on to my monthly log. For the headers on my monthly pages, I went with cursive where each letter is a different colour. I started with having the letters penciled in, mainly because I still find brush lettering to be super difficult, but also to make sure that I left myself enough space for the words that I needed to write. Over the top of the pencil, I used my Tombow dual brush markers to add the colour, and then outlined the letters with an S-size Pitt Artist pen. To add some more dimension, I also went back in with the Tombows and coloured over the bottom half of each letter, just using the same colour as before. This just darkened up that lower half and essentially added a subtle gradient. After that, I also added in a drop shadow using a grey Tombow. Once I'd finished all the pages of my monthly setup, I decided that the headers needed some more attention, so I also added in a white highlight using a Signo gel pen, but you'll see that later. In terms of the layout of the monthly log, as much as I love and honestly kind of prefer the calendar style layout, I find that the leftover space you get in an Archer and Olive is difficult to work with. As each page in the Archer and Olive is 26 spaces or 13 centimeters across, to have even boxes that fit the dot grid, each calendar box would be 6 spaces or 3 centimeters in width. This ends up leaving a 1 centimeter gap on the page that you have 4 days on, and a 4 centimeter gap on the page you have 3 days on. Not only is that extra space kind of difficult to work with, outside of just putting in decorative elements or maybe a monthly running to-do list in the space where you have 4 centimeters, I personally find that only having 6 spaces across feels a little bit cramped. I've said previously that my preferred column width for tasks and events is 8 spaces. This just typically gives me a comfortable amount of room to draw out my signifier and write out what I need to. So having a calendar where the boxes are only 6 spaces across, as I said, feels a little bit cramped. In the dingbats, the pages were 28 spaces or 14 centimeters across, which meant you can have boxes that are 7 spaces wide for a calendar. Although this was 1 space shy of my preference, I did really get quite used to using that layout last year, and I really did like it. That's certainly something I miss from my Dingbats journal. Coming back to this month's layout though, I've decided to have a vertical style monthly log on the right hand page, and then a smaller calendar grid on the left. This way I still have a reference for which date number is on which day, but I've got sufficient space to write out my events for March. This also meant that I could add some decoration under that mini calendar grid, so I drew in some of the streamers/feathers that I've been using to decorate my Dreamcatcher drawings. For the vertical monthly log, I just filled the extra space at the top and bottom with some washi and another quote that says, "The dream is free, hustle is sold separately." This one again just feeds into me trying to overcome my apathy in March and getting back to making what matters happen. Monthly log done, on to my trackers. On this spread I have my tracker for my mood and for my habits. As I said before, the headers on these ones were just done in the same way as the one on my monthly log. So that combination of different coloured tombos, the black outlines, and the grey drop shadows. Both of these trackers are based on Dreamcatchers, but they're going to be filled in differently. For the habits tracker, I have enough concentric circles to accommodate 10 habits, with each ring having been divided into 32 equal-ish segments. One of the segments in each ring holds a number from 1 to 10, which corresponds to the key that I end up drawing in at the top of the page. The other 31 spaces in each ring are for each day of the month. To fill this one in, I'll just colour in a segment for any completed habit, and I'll leave a segment blank if the habit doesn't get completed. In terms of decoration on this one, in the middle of the habit tracker, I just included a simple Dreamcatcher pattern, and then for the decoration under the main body of the Dreamcatcher, I just drew in some streamers. At this stage, I haven't decided what my habits are going to be for March, but I'll probably make a choice about that when I set up my power sheets for next month. As I mentioned before, the patterns on Dreamcatchers use straight lines, not curved ones. So instead of using my helix to draw in all of the concentric circles, I instead put a dot anywhere to signify where my straight line dividers intersected my concentric circles, and then I joined those dots using straight lines. Hopefully that makes sense, but if it doesn't, hopefully at least you can see what I'm doing in the footage. For my mood tracker on the other hand, this one I completely filled with a Dreamcatcher pattern, but anywhere that 2 threads would intersect, I drew a decently sized circle, kind of to represent a bead. Each of those circles were numbered to represent each day of the month. In the pattern that I had for this, there were 32 intersections and thus 32 circles. That extra one I just drew a smiley face in at the end. I'd rather have a happy little bead than one random intersection that didn't have one. For the decoration under this Dreamcatcher, I included some beaded streamers and feathers. I didn't end up including a key on my mood tracker page, but I might go in at some stage and add one in, maybe in the top left and right corners. The way that I'm going to be filling this one in is that at the end of each day, I'll select one colour that represents my main mood for the day. This judgment isn't scientific or mathematical. I'm not going to be doing any percentage calculations about how much time I spent being happy or sad. It's really all just based on a general feeling come the end of the day about how that day went as a whole. I know that some people are put off by mood trackers because of the wide range of moods or emotions that they experience in any given day. I myself am no different, but for me a mood tracker page is really just a bit of fun. And most of the time I don't have a lot of difficulty in assigning one general feeling to the day as a whole. To finish off my mood tracker, I added some colour using my tombos. I know that come the end of March, this spread is going to be a lot more colourful, especially on the habit tracker side, which is why I decided to leave the outer hoop of each Dreamcatcher blank. Onto my social media scheduler and my main stuff up for this setup. It wouldn't be one of my monthly plan with me's without a stuff up, right? Sadly, when I put down the numbers for the days that I release videos, I missed the last Sunday and Monday of the month. Thankfully, this was an easy enough fix though. I just had to move my washi tape, write in the 2 additional dates, rule a new bottom line, and go over the old one using my Uniball Signo white gel pen. Piece of cake. If you don't have a white gel pen, I would highly recommend getting one to do fix-ups like this. The nice part about the Archer in Olive is that the white gel pen blends in really well with the bright white pages. This fix doesn't work quite as well in the Dingbats, for instance, which does have a creamier coloured paper, but it is still a good trick for fixing smaller mistakes. Along with being really good for mistake fixing, I also like to use my white gel pen to add highlights, especially to my lettering. As I mentioned before, I do go in and end up adding highlights to each of the titles for my March monthly pages, and I feel that it finishes them off really nicely. Thank you again to everyone who gave me suggestions for March's monthly theme. I really loved doing these Dreamcatcher pages. I'm curious to know what monthly theme you ended up doing, so if you wanted to let us know, feel free to drop that in the comments below. Or, of course, if you have any suggestions for other themes you'd like to see me do, please let me know those as well. For a final flip through, we have my quote and cover pages, my monthly log, habits and mood trackers, and my social media scheduler. A few less spreads compared to normal, but my hand is certainly just as sore as it usually is. Thank you for watching, team. If you liked today's video, please do make sure to give it a big thumbs up, and if you wanted to see more from me, feel free to go check out one of my other videos. Until next time, bye!